Welcome to tonight's Westwood Planning Board meeting. My name is Chris Taft and I'll be chairing tonight's meeting. All meetings are recorded by Westcat. Is there anyone else here tonight that would like to record tonight's meeting? So please identify. Okay, seeing no one. As a reminder, I'd like to ask you to turn off your cell phones. Tonight's agenda is available in the back of the room or somewhere. Everyone should read one. The meeting will follow the order on the agenda unless changes have been made. The meeting will be civil and all people treated with respect. The format of the meeting will be when an item is called, the applicant comes forward to the podium to present their application to the board. The board will proceed to staff comments. The board members will then ask questions of the applicant, and then the public will be given an opportunity to comment. When it is time for the public comment period, the chairman will call on those wishing to speak up to the podium. Once at the podium, please identify yourself by stating your name and address for the record. All comments and questions should be directed through the chair. All people will be given the opportunity to speak, but in the interest of time and fairness, repetitive or off-topic comments may be cut short. First of all, Nora, are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
The only change I would ask is that you take number 9 on the, I'm sorry, it's number 9 on the agenda. I'm taking on one. And if you could move that to number 3. Appreciate that. And then let everything else go behind it. The reason for that is that the same abutters are interested in application number 2 and number 9.
Okay. All right. So first up tonight is the Washington Street project from Islington. Public hearing for a special permit continued from December 1st, 2015 and January 12th, 2016. For the applicant.
Hello, this working from up here?
Is the green light on?
Green light on.
Can you hear that? Oh, now it's working. Good evening. For the record, I'm Peter Zucker, attorney with offices at 12 School Street in Dedham, here on behalf of the applicant. Also here is Jojo Petruzziello, principal of the applicant. Mike McKay from McKay Associates, who is the project architect. Matt Smith from Norwood Engineering, who is the project engineer. And Ken Cram from Bayside Engineering, who is the traffic engineer. First of all, like I said, it's a beautiful building. First time I've been in this library. Very nice. Since the last meeting, we've had an opportunity to formally respond to Beta's comments in their review, as well as other comments that we received from the town. Our responses have likewise been commented on, and this evening we'll hopefully fill in a few of the holes. I'm going to have Mike McKay shortly do a quick review. I understand you have a very long agenda tonight, but do a quick review of the changes that have been made. We do note that a lot of the items that have been requested are coordinating the various plans, so it's on one plan is likewise on another plan, and also asking for some specific detail in the nature of architectural drawings and the like, almost to the extent that they're almost like construction drawings. I'd just like to note for the record that as was requested, we did provide an updated fiscal analysis. That fiscal analysis, as requested, took our assumption of no school children and ran the numbers as if there were 1 school-age child, 2 school-age children, and 3 school-age children residing in the proposed development. And the conclusion in that is, while it declines, under all scenarios, the project is still fiscally positive to the town. And we were also requested, and did so, we updated the traffic analysis, one, to reflect the change in the composition of this project, the reduction in the apartments and the increase in the commercial space, as well as to take into account the project at the former Polaroid site in Norwood, to make sure that that traffic was accounted for. And I think 99.9% of the responses to that were that there were no further comments required. We got to say that we think this is our 3rd hearing. I think the project has moved along in a very positive sense. A number of the comments and things that we've put into this project and have changed as a result of this process, I think clearly are for the better. That includes not only the landscaping buffer in the back, which is now behind the new building, the full 20 feet as required. We've also added the additional parking. We've, in addition to that, adopted a number of the requests or comments that were made by the Pedestrian and Bike Safety Committee to make it, if you will, a more user-friendly, community-friendly, citizen-friendly area around the building with seating and bike ramp, bike accommodations, etc. And just for the record, the waiver requests have really not changed since day one. We still need the waiver request from the 20-foot buffer, but in this case, it's for the existing condition at the existing building on the site. And by the existing building is the one with the post office and Wild Blossom, that building. The minimum project area hasn't changed. 41,362 square feet is the area of this project versus the 43,560. And on the parking, not a waiver, but asking the planning board to establish the parking. We'll get into that a little bit, but Vader did their own analysis in their report in terms of how the parking would work. We have been going back and forth in terms of the actual number of parking required or necessary to support the project. Vader indicates in terms of on-site, they have questions of how it will function, but in terms of on-site, as I understand their report, they have us 7 spaces short. Again, we believe that that is a sufficient number to support this project in light of the fact that the municipal parking lot is available to accommodate this project. We previously submitted a plan that shows the 400 feet distance from the municipal parking lot, and that encompasses basically the entire existing building of this project. And secondarily, we submitted to the board a report from our traffic consultant where they took a look at the municipal lot on Friday and Saturday nights, the peak hours, and you have a report in your file indicating that during the peak hours, the municipal lot is virtually untouched. In fact, I think our report came back and said that there is some long all-day parking taking place there, and we made some assumptions as to where those all-day parkers may be going. But other than that, that parking lot is readily available. So again, I know you have a long agenda. I'm going to have Mike come up and run through the project.
Thank you, Michael McKay, the project architect. I'd like to go through just the changes, but if requested, I can answer, review some project details, some of the things that have not changed. But I'm starting with the landscape drawing. It is this is a small scale version. This encompasses both buildings. At the last hearing, we were asked to look at the front of the post office building, and the developer met with neighbors and got some feedback, and it turns out we're actually going to tear that entire hardscape and landscaped area up and redevelop it completely, and we have a plan tonight that shows that. We also tried to respond to some of Vader's comments. We received more last week. We tried to respond to some. We haven't responded to all, but we will in the next week or so. So I'd like to just start again. The landscape plan is not much has changed on this except for the front of both buildings. It's a little bit more detailed. The specifications are for the pine trees. We ended up putting the pines in the back in the buffer zone. We ended up bringing them onto our property because there was some legal issues in terms of how the trees would be maintained on another person's property, whether it be an easement. So we actually just decided to put them onto our property. So the pines, there would be a screening, and the landscape architect has responded to in terms of the number. This would be a dense screening along that back line. I don't have a pointer, so I'm going to have to try to. It's the back left corner behind the building, the new building. Let's see. This is the landscape drawing in front of the post office building. Again, it's completely redeveloped. It has, instead of a series of stairways that cut along the front side of it, we've developed the corner, the lower right corner, I'm sorry, landscape area there, and then a raised sitting area outside of Wild Blossom. There would be a walkway along the front of the building, and then heavy landscaping along the front edge, and then again on the far left side, there would be a raised seating area with a railing, and some of the details, there's bike racks, there's some lighting details, a railing. We're proposing an iron rail that would, and a wrought iron rail that would wrap around all of these raised area, and that's just an image of how we see that being implemented. Again, it's difficult. There's a lot of detail into this plan, but it's completely redeveloped, and I think endorsed. I think generally endorsed by the neighborhood.
Mike, the corner's been flipped, so the chairs are now facing.
Oh, okay.
That round corner of the front has been.
That's, I think that, the other detail, the other plan showed it correctly. On the lower right side, the seating area has actually been flipped, with I think the large scale version, the overall plan is the correct design for that. This is the rendering. Nothing's changed with this. I just I included these just for context if there was any questions. The two major renderings of the renovation and the new building. This is the lower level parking garage, and all the parking spaces have been dimensioned and detailed. We still have to show some access out, some auto turns in terms of how the vehicles would enter into that. We'll respond to various comments on that. But it's a 14% ramp. I have a section through it that I'll show later. We have an exhaust. One of the questions was a garage exhaust. We will run some ductwork along the backside. We want to exhaust into the rear left corner behind where there's a walkway. So that it's just a carbon monoxide exhaust. So this is a much more developed plan than we submitted at our last meeting. This again is the same plan, just a couple of things that, a couple of items that we were asked. One was a gate, where we propose an automatic gate. This would be a tenant-only garage, so we would provide remote controls for the tenants, so there'd be a garage door, a rolling door that would provide security and limit access to the lower garage. But also have a guardrail on both sides, and I can show that in this section, and an audible alarm when vehicles are exiting. An audible alarm. One of the things that we were looking at was an audio visual, but there would definitely be an audible. And I've never worked with a visual one, only with the audio, but we're proposing a 70 decibel alarm that would notify any pedestrians walking on the sidewalk that a vehicle is exiting. But everything else is pretty much the same in this plan. We're not showing an interior egress corridor, because we don't know how many tenants there will be, but if there is additional tenants, if it's one tenant, then there would not be an egress corridor. But as soon as we split it up into tenants, there would be a corridor in the back of the floor plan. These two, there's no change to the second and third floor. We have 6 units per floor, and 6 one-bedroom units per floor, so there's no change to these. This is a roof plan. So at the last meeting, it was suggested that I think it was a great idea. We have the room to do it. It's a kind of a complicated-looking drawing, but The mechanical units would actually be recessed, and I'll show you in that section how that works. But the perimeter of the roof is all sloping, but the middle portion is actually recessed 3 feet. So the units would be recessed down. We would have roof drains, internal roof drains that would take care of any drainage. We would also have gutters at the perimeter around the sloping part. But all those arrows are showing the sloped roof. The rest of it is an internal flat roof that it would be hidden. So all the mechanical equipment would be hidden from view, and also help with the noise. I think it was a great suggestion at the last meeting. And this is a section through the garage, but it also shows that that recessed area. If you look on the top, you'd see the sloping portion, and then there's a 3-foot recessed area that where the HVAC units. And these are 2.5 ton. They're roughly, an oversized suitcase size unit, similar to a residential air conditioning unit. On the right side, there's a vertical line. That's the property line. That's where the street sidewalk is, and that's where we would start the ramp down. This is a average size minivan that is going down this 14% ramp. And there would be a guard wall on either side of that, preventing any kind of, it would protect the pedestrians along either side of the ramp. But this would extend out just about to the property line. And we're being conservative with our headroom. We're calling out 7'2", but we think we can get close to 8 feet at this ramp location. It's also shown as the ramp comes down, we would have brick, similar brick to what we're proposing outside, with bringing the siding in and some piers, some pilasters, so that it's not just a blank wall. I think that was suggested again at the last, one of the early meetings. And this shows how the garage would actually extend in. This is more schematic. It's not a construction drawing by any means, but it does give you a sense of how the ramp will work, how that recessed area and also the garage extends underneath the building line. The elevation is the same, except with the exception of it's just a dotted line showing where that recessed area is located. I think all 4 elevations show that. And the dotted line just showed the ramp, but we put that ramp section together and the roof plan, so that it kind of made this information a little bit. It's not as clear as the other information. And I think from the very quick, I'm trying to keep it quick too, but that's a quick overview of the changes that we've made. The number of units are the same, square footage is the same, but it was also, I'm going to go back one. We were asked to look at the square footage of the total project area, and the residential is much less than the commercial. It needed to be 50% or less, and we're 3,000 square feet less than that, and that number is in the corner. Abby had asked us to put that on the drawing. I think it's on the site zoning drawing also. I think that's it for a quick overview. Oh, the garage, I'm sorry. Peter asked to do that earlier. So in terms of the tandem parking, this would all be tenants, whether it be residential tenants or the commercial tenants. During the day, we would anticipate the commercial doubling up. If it's a commercial tenant would take the tandem and the 8 or so spaces on the bottom part. Those would be used by common tenants so they would be able to self-manage the tandem. During the night, if it's multiple tenants, multiple cars in each spot, they would be able to use the tandem. Again, this is all just all tenants for both the commercial, both this building, but we'd also have the tenants from, potentially the post office tenants could use this building also. So it would be commercial tenants for both buildings, but at night it would be the residential tenants that would use this parking. That answer it? I don't know, Matt,
I'll be happy to answer any
Yeah.
questions. I don't know if I need to present at this time.
again, I don't have the site plan, that's on Matt's, Matt has the site plan on his.
Sure, if we could just put the landscape plan up again.
Circulation, there we go.
Sure.
At the last meeting, we were also encouraged to look at a one-way off of Washington Street, and this design shows how that would work. We went with an angled parking, we were able to get a sidewalk on the right side against the existing building, against the Islington Pizza space. So there would be one-way traffic going from Washington Street through to School Street, and there's no change to the parking in the back, but along between the new building and the existing building, there would be angled parking. We did have less spaces because of that, but that was from a safety standpoint, it was suggested, and again, it ended up working well with the plan in terms of providing that sidewalk along the Islington Pizza side of the building. Okay?
Do you have a pointer that you could just point out what that flow, that one-way flow is? It's hard to tell from this
You're
distance.
talking about coming through here, through the two buildings,
So if I'm
going out that way.
coming on Washington Street,
Down here,
okay,
take a right, if you're coming from Dedham side, into,
so. and
much
that
like you
would
do
be-
now.
That will, and if you're heading in the opposite direction, you'll
This
go
way?
through the light to.
No, you take a left into the,
So if you have a parking garage there with a door that has to go up and down by sensor, is,
that's back here.
I don't think that's a broken line on Washington, to take a left
it's not,
from
but,
Norwood.
but people do.
We'll get to questions in a
Okay,
little bit.
okay.
Sorry, we'll let them present and let the peer review make their comments. Is that everything?
That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point, I think we'd like to hear some of the comments from Beta.
It's not working? Oh. Okay.
If you do the full unit, so we can see.
So my name's Merritt Turner with Beta Group, the peer review consultant for the project. I'm here with Mike Sinesi, architectural reviewer, and Greg Lucas, traffic reviewer. As noted, the project has been through really 3 submissions, and with the memorandum that's in front of the board, the February 18th memorandum, what we've tried to do is sort of capture each of those comments and add new comments to sort of bring us all up to date in terms of where we are in terms of review. So there are a significant number of comments. I think I agree with the applicant's assessment, which is a large proportion, I think, more detailed and really reflect coordination on the plans and could be fairly readily coordinated. But I think there are also some more significant issues which in our minds may affect not necessarily building footprint, but layout, dimension and so forth, and we felt that it was more important to focus on those in terms of the discussion tonight and get some feedback from the board, because I think there are some decisions and some input from the board that would be helpful in terms of moving things along. With that said, I think what I'd like to do is have the primary issues there are really around architecture and around traffic and parking. So I'd like to have Mike and Greg come up in turn and just spend a few minutes going through those 2 disciplines, and then I'll just conclude with the other design disciplines such as utilities, lighting, which I think are a little less significant, but I think the focus wants to be with Mike and Greg. So Mike, if you want to come up first.
Thank you for the record. I'm Mike Sinesi, peer review, architectural review for the town. I'd like to thank the applicant for updating the drawings and making the presentation, thanks. We looked at the drawings and as that we had received, and as Merrick said, while there have been some updates and we still have several questions and concerns that relate to the layout of the building and its operation. One of the questions that we had was related to additional drawings. Now, we have seen in the past, we have seen architectural elevations for the existing building, 301, 315. Those have not necessarily kept up with the presentations that we've been receiving. So we just want to make sure that the town is satisfied with what has been submitted before in terms of the amount of information. We'd like to keep it with the package as it develops so that the understanding of the actual materials and how they are being used on that elevation, the work that would be performed on that building, what is that work? Is it consistent? Has it been kept up? Those are the kinds of questions we want to make sure are addressed on that building. Because most of the focus has been on the residential building and retail building. We've asked for plans, and those have been provided for the retail building and the residential building. We had asked for the roof plan, and that has now been part of this presentation, so we're pleased to see that. We would like to see materials board, actual materials, whether those are in illustrative form or in actual form. It's great. That's what we'd like to have as part of the presentation as well. And likewise, perhaps not at this time, but in subsequent presentations, we'd like to see a signage package to understand how that will be impacted on the streetscape and on each of the building elevations. Most of our focus in questions relate to the underground parking garage at this point. We do have some concerns about the 14.5% slope on the ramp leading down to the garage. Typically on a slope of that grade, we would require a transition slope at the top and at the bottom. Not really sure if that's to be provided. A little concerned with the rise versus the run on that slope provided, in particular down at the bottom of the ramp. Typically of a ramp 14% slope, that would be a non-parking ramp, just for access only. You would have a 6 to 6.5% transition slope, both at the top and at the bottom. Those are relatively standard parking guidelines to follow. So we were curious as to how that would take place. I could turn to the parking plan just to illustrate that point. Just back and forth. Great. Yeah. No. Okay. Right. Where clearly this section shows that there's a great differential between the street, the front of the building, and the rear of the building. And so that's an advantage for the project. But at the street, you would typically have a transition where the railing is shown so that you don't bottom out at that point. And then at the bottom of the ramp, about where the front wheels of the van are shown, you would have a transition grade to ease you down on that slope. So we would like to understand how that works a little more. And I'm going to see if I can keep this. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing here. Right here. Then we were a little perplexed by the diagonal line at the bottom of the ramp shown in the plan, because geometrically that we're not sure how that works. We were also concerned about the size of spaces number 1 and 2 and 3 as the vehicles come down and are turning. So we'd like to see a vehicle turn plan on the garage at down at that level. I'm pleased to see the note about the exhaust, the ductwork across the back of the garage, so that's good, that's great. Typically, or the code requires a curb transition where the elevator vestibule and stair vestibule exit into the garage. So there should be a means to protect pedestrians as they exit the vestibule into the garage. So there should be some sort of a transition there at that location, much as there's shown where the egress stairs are also shown. And then, as one of the audience members mentioned, we're somewhat, we'd like a little more understanding of how vehicle access works with respect to pedestrian crossing, and how one vehicle exiting the garage at the same time as another vehicle entering the garage might conflict, and how they might be allowed to alert one another and work that through. We're a little concerned about the portion of the ramp that is outside the building. Perhaps on a slope of 14.5%, there should be a snow melt system underneath that, an electric snow melt system to prevent vehicles from sliding as they exit onto the ramp in front of freezing weather. And we're glad to see the guardrail so that pedestrians could not fall into the ramp area. We're assuming that the sidewall, the outer sidewall of the building along the ramp isn't open to the air, along the left-hand side of this, that's open to the air. Columns, right? Okay, thank you. So that's effectively the nature of our questions. Thank you.
So at this point, I'll have Greg come up and run through the traffic, or would the board like to take some questions? We can.
I think we'd like to hear traffic.
Okay.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Greg Lucas, traffic engineer with Beta Group. And so we looked at, as was discussed, we had some issues related to parking and access, a lot of things that have been resolved by the most recent submission, some things that tie into the things that Mike just talked about related specifically to the underground parking. What we also did was we did a little bit more analysis as to how much parking is potentially required by this. Westwood zoning bylaws require, for the various uses, both existing and proposed, Westwood zoning bylaws require 96 total parking spaces. And so we did an analysis that suggests using ITE, which is an industry standard, parking generation numbers, that suggests that this would require a total of 87 spaces. And the primary difference there comes in the residential and the apartment use. Westwood zoning bylaws would require 2 spaces per dwelling unit, 12 units. The ITE rate is closer to 1 1/4. It's actually 1.23, and so that makes up the difference between the 96 and the 87. And so there are 80, well, there's 71 on site, and then there's 9 that are legally permitted for the Wild Blossom restaurant in the municipal lot. So the applicant is providing 80 spaces for the existing uses. So we see that there's, using the ITE numbers, a difference of 7, or a shortfall of 7 spaces. That would be from what is required, or what would be expected to be the demand for the various uses. We also had some questions regarding the underground parking. One plan shows 24 spaces, one plan shows 23. There was a handicap space shown underground, and there's a question of just a little more detail needs to be provided as to how access is provided from that handicap space to the elevator and the lobby to the residential building. From a traffic perspective, the study was updated for, as was mentioned by the applicant, the study was updated based on the changes in use that had happened since the original study was issued, and also for the one-way flow. And so from that, all of our previous comments were addressed. There was just some coordination with site issues and landscaping, but that's a relatively minor detail, so I don't think there was anything else particular, but we can get into questions. Oh, there was a comment related to, I don't know, do we know the changes to get back to that?
The site plan, I think you just go backwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was a buffer question with the spaces along the back, along those you could see behind the, well, I'll call the existing building, the Islington Pizza Post Office building, there's a landscape buffer there, there's some existing shrubbery, and so those spaces don't quite have the depth required by Westwood guidelines for the stall length and the overhang required, and so that was something that still is to be resolved. Other than that, you know, the other things were updated based on our previous comments, like providing a walkway along the, along the Islington Pizza building and some of the other configurations related to the one-way flow.
So as far as just some of the other design disciplines are concerned, just quickly going through those, and just flip to that page. From a landscape and buffering standpoint, as noted, one of the changes in the plans with the tree plantings along the westerly edge of the proposed building, those are now back on the applicant's property, which is a slight change from prior discussions. The applicant, I believe, has been working with the abutters there in terms of achieving an appropriate buffer in that area. There are a few areas on the landscape plans which I think are very much details, but I think are important considerations. For example, the placement of the bicycle racks at the front of the existing building. It looks like it's in a very tight space where the bikes would overhang the sidewalks, which we may not want because the existing sidewalks are not that generous anyway. So I think there's a little attention to detail along these frontages that needs to be paid in terms of just making sure everything is correct and represented in a workable fashion. Materials, replacement of the extent of the sidewalk in front of these buildings and so forth just needs to be clarified. In terms of lighting, we don't have any major comments on lighting. I think the only issue that came up was in a prior comment was it's a modern fixture in the parking lot versus the more ornate architectural fixtures in the street. And did the board have any concerns or input on that? We don't have any concerns. I don't believe the proponent is planning any new lighting along the front other than building lighting. So it wouldn't be a mixture that was occurring on the street frontage. It would be something a little more isolated in the back. As Mike mentioned, on the signage review, that's a package that we haven't seen in terms of details with warnings, signage and so forth. And again, to the extent that the board wants to understand that. On stormwater, one of the things we would suggest doing is getting some soil testing done just to examine the permeability. If there wasn't the permeability that was expected and there was a change in design, I think we would prefer to understand that now rather than later. And then on the utilities, one more on the stormwater. I think just again just to follow everything through with the appropriate maintenance plan and address things such as spillage and so forth, particularly in light of infiltration proposed at the site. And then on utilities, really no major issues on utilities other than adding details to the plans. So that's a very quick sort of roundup of the comments, and obviously we'd be happy to take any questions at this point.
Thank you. Nora, do you have anything to add that has not been addressed?
My only question is whether peer review took a look at all at the fiscal analysis, and if you had any comments. I don't know if that was in your ballpark on this application.
We really haven't spent a lot of time on that yet. We were sort of more focused on the package and the sort of the physical nature of the building and landscape and so forth. But we can
we can certainly take a look at that if you'd like us to.
I'd like you to just take a quick look at it. I think staff has reviewed it and it appears to be consistent with our other experiences in town, but we'd like to hear from you as well.
Yeah.
All right, at this time, we'll open up to questions for the board. Can we start down there? Mr. Wigan, do you have any
I
questions?
think that some of the changes have been made are definitely an improvement, so that's good. Having to do with the exterior landscaping, streetscape in particular, is good. Merrick, the parking spaces along that rear property line, or so, what if you maybe, who's my turn? Aren't sized correctly. Is it possible to correct that?
Potentially, it depends on the shrubbery and how much of that space is available as an overhang.
I think the only other consideration might be if, and this would have an effect on space count, is if they were 45 degree rather than 60 degree, you could narrow up the area a little bit,
Right.
and trade some dimensions that way.
Right.
I think the other thing we would just note there is along the back of the existing building, there looks like there's some AC units, some utility poles, there's no disposition indicated for those, and certainly some of those are interfering with parking as it's currently proposed, so I think that needs to be sorted out as well. But I think the choice is adjusting the space angle, or as Greg mentioned, basically utilising the landscaping of it.
I'm sorry, Greg, it was you that made that comment. So if you go to 45 rather than 60, though, do you lose spaces?
Most likely.
Yeah, I think you
yeah.
might lose maybe one
Yeah.
on each row, maybe.
Okay. All right. And then when we do the parking count, there's no, the calculations either using our own code or the ITE is based on the spaces that are required, no assumption of shared parking or anything like that.
Right.
And I didn't hear anything about there was a loading dock question. I didn't hear anything about that.
That was an issue that hadn't been resolved. The clarification, and the applicant can correct this if necessary. The clarification at the last meeting was that loading would take place within the drive aisle.
And I think what we would suggest is certainly seeing some vehicle turns, just to show how that is done.
And we were concerned with the dumpster area and how how that truck would have access to that, given the piece of curb that now juts out where today it's over pavement. So we want to make sure that they still have access to that fenced area where the dumpsters are located.
Is that one-way drive going through there capable of handling 2 cars at a time? If one was pulled over a little bit. So if somebody was waiting for
It would
parking
depend.
space.
It could certainly handle 2 cars. Depending on the size of the delivery vehicle, it could be more problematic.
Just cars, no delivery vehicles.
Cars, yes.
How wide is it?
It's 20 feet wide. Yeah, it's 20 feet wide on the entrance side, and I believe it's 16 feet wide on the back side.
Okay, that's all I have.
Yeah, I too am sort of pleased with the development. I think the move to dramatically improve that frontage zone in front of the post office building is a great additive to the overall project. And the notion of activating those spaces with some outdoor seating would be wonderful in the appropriate weather months, so to speak. I just wanted to ask maybe Michael or someone else from the applicants group, can you just talk a little bit more about the ramp? Everyone's very hot and bothered about the ramp. Just tell us more. Is there a blend at the top and bottom? Is there not? Are you concerned?
Take it away.
The diagonal line was really just like a concrete pour line. It's not like a physical barrier in any way, but it was a transition. We would have a transition at the bottom, and that's where we have an elevation, a slab elevation in the middle of the garage, but we would be slightly sloping up, and there would be a transition at that. And that's what that was trying to indicate. The drawings that we have are schematic. They're becoming more and more design development, and what I expect for our, if there is to be an approval, we would be doing just, very close to construction level drawings on these ramps, where we would identify elevations all the way down, and we're very comfortable with this ramp, that it works. I drive in a ramp that is steeper than this every day, and we don't bottom out. So that's what the angle, in a sense, it was trying to represent a transition. I do agree we need to identify some turns, some auto turns on this plan to ensure that the spaces can be adequately, you could drive into 1 and 2 and 11. I think those are the spaces that is concerns, but the ramp is 14 and a half is, we've gone as much as 20, we've gone, 10% would be a low ramp. I think heating the front portion is a good suggestion, as that front portion will be undercover. I mean, not covered, so I think that would be a good addition to it. But I'm very comfortable that the next level of drawing that you'll see will give us identifying elevations all the way down. That's typically what we do for a ramp like this. It's just taking it to a next level of drawing in detail.
Thanks very much, that's great. I think this app, fine, Steve, do this.
Yeah, so this is looking better all the time. The sidewalk things. First of all, along all the parking spaces, for instance, along the back, is there a curve along there? I don't know if that's indicated, it doesn't show up, but the landscaping there. So where do we need car stops, and where does a curve stand to do that? I think that needs to be spelled out.
I think that needs to be clarified.
Yeah,
As to whether that's a curve, and that would certainly define that overhang area.
So the new sidewalk that you put in alongside the pizza place, it seems to end abruptly at the landscape area. Could we extend that into the rear parking lot with a ramp?
Yes, we've done that on the latest set of drawings.
Okay, and also, now that you have everything, across the way with the pedestrian, the handicap parking space, you have a triangle there that doesn't get used at all in the lower.
Can we go back to the second?
Right, in the lower left, next to the handicap spot. Could you just put curving across that and put landscape area similar to the other side where you have the triangle landscape area? Since nothing else.
Yeah, I think that's our intent, yeah,
It
we'll
is to
clarify
be
that.
landscaped.
Yes, yep.
And if you are rearranging on the other side, maybe the sidewalk that goes along Blossom could also go through, just painted on, so that some people could walk on that sidewalk and get into the parking area.
Okay, yeah, that's been done, yeah, if I understand it, yes, what you're saying, yeah, up in the corner, you come down, and then over, yes.
And then again, more details on that dumpster, what it looks like and how it opens, because it looks like it would be kind of hard for the truck to angle in there, particularly depending upon how it opens up. Oh, one more thing, the picture of the trash receptacle that you had, you shouldn't have any more trash receptacles. You should have only dual recycling and trash, so it'll be double units.
Okay.
I also said, if you have a problem with the bicycle racks, maybe they could be angled a little bit, and that would get the bicycles in there. and
Yep, good point, we'll solve that.
Okay.
Yeah, come a long way and sort of some to go. One question, where will the garage door be?
We've shown it at the face,
At the bottom of the ramp?
no, at the face, but I'm actually, rolling brick,
Okay, that's, I was wondering why you're going to the
Yeah,
garage
sorry,
door.
we changed that.
It's just, because that's quicker, is what I'm concerned, is the time delay of the door opening and closing.
Yeah, it's just.
If you have conflicting traffic, and people being able to see that there's somebody coming the other way. Other than that, that was, only, everything else been answered, besides the open issues. Let's see.
Okay, had a couple questions. First of all, I assume this is, the parking we're talking about, it's all new pavement?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not gonna try to make do with what's there, no. Well, it was touched on, lighting for the parking lot. There's no standing, poles, it's just gonna be mounted on the, I'm thinking out by the dumpsters, it's gonna be quite dark at night. Is there any illumination plan for out there? I didn't see.
I do have a new lighting plan to submit to be reviewed, and I believe that does show that we do have some light around the dumpster.
I didn't-
It's a photometric.
Yes, it is a photometric. I literally
So you'd
just
like to see
received it
that.
tonight, I have a copy, we'll deliver copies to the town, but we'll take a look at that and make sure that the dumpster is provided with light.
Thank you. And I was happy to see that you were able to put a sidewalk outside the Islington Pizza. Is that a raised sidewalk?
Yes, on the, we're in the corner, next time we'll have to bring a point.
Between the two buildings,
Yeah, yes, it is, yes,
the side entrance to the pizza.
yes.
And the new exit up there on School Street, looks like you're constructing a new, sorry, can you get that in mind? Some landscape areas? Is that
Yes,
right?
two
As you
little
exit?
islands there as you come in, well, as you come out on both sides.
And my plan says red maples.
I
is that
believe
right?
so, I'd have to,
Okay.
yeah, I can't, I'd have to.
My recollection in navigating this myself is, when you get there, it can be difficult line of sight to see to your left up School Street. And adding more, as much as I like trees, adding more there might be problematic. It might not, but I just want you to carefully
Yes,
look at
yeah,
that.
we
Is
were
there-
talking about that.
Is there a traffic control there? Is there a stop sign for people exiting? Is there any form of, is
Yeah,
one
there should
needed?
be a stop sign there, I believe it's on our site plans, but yeah, there should be a stop sign.
Okay, and then, we're trying to allow foot traffic coming down the sidewalk on School Street to then take a right, to come closer to the building onto that sidewalk, correct?
Yes, so people will be walking down School Street, kind of along the pavement, and then correct, you'll make a right to get close to the corner of the building, and then down along the building, so.
And currently,
that's-
right now, there's nothing there, right?
Yes, that's what I recall, and so we've revised the site plans to show that. So when you're coming down School Street, you'll be along School Street, then you make a right and get close to the building, and then walk along the building.
Is this a raised sidewalk?
Yes,
Okay. And will there be curbing there on the angled spots in the back? Those two spots that approach that? Okay.
Curving on both sides of it.
yes. Which
Will it be a
angle?
raised part,
Yes,
the last two of the angle closer to the building?
yes, yes,
He
that,
does have a,
yes,
he does
yes.
have a marker for a concrete curb
Okay,
or something there.
okay. And the dumpsters are still in that location, straight up?
Yes.
In that- Okay. I think everything else I had has been addressed. Mr. O'Lon, do you have any questions?
Yeah, once again, these are old issues, but we want the driveway entrance and then an exit there to, the sidewalk should be at sidewalk height, concrete right across, it's still not indicating that. And have a picture that, so when they take that right turn, the pedestrian sidewalk rounds off the inside corner a little bit. So it's not, 90 degrees there. Just a couple of feet of the landscape there.
On the exit,
The other one is that coming down School Street, then you turn right to the sidewalk and you turn left.
okay, for the sidewalk, not for the driveway.
The sidewalk,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
round off the sidewalk.
Okay.
One other thought just occurred to me. As you're approaching the ramp, how much room is in that sidewalk? How wide is that sidewalk?
It's 8 feet.
8 feet? And the arm that we're talking about is going to be back how much farther?
12 and a half feet.
So we have 20 feet roughly. So a car, and how would that, would it be essentially like a garage door opener?
Garage door.
Okay, and so I'm just wondering about cars queuing up. If it goes up, I'm just thinking how much room there is to navigate that right or left turn into the garage, so 20 feet, okay.
It's more
Right,
than
so
a
if the car goes in and the gate doesn't go up for some reason, the car's not blocking the sidewalk or the way.
They'll have 12 feet.
So it's maybe blocking a little bit of the sidewalk. We could recess it in further too.
Okay. I do, as Beta mentioned, I think I mentioned this last meeting, I do have concerns about how this will work, and I'd love to see maybe a bit more, but all in all, I'm pleased with the responses you've made on this project from day one, so. Okay, does the board have any other follow-up questions, any other things come to mind before we open this up? Okay, at this time, we will take public comment or questions. And again, I ask you, all questions be directed to the board. What we'll do, not sure how many of you are here for this, but what we'll do is ask you to come up and we'll just line up here, so we don't have to wait for people to get up and down. And you come up and line up, and we'll just take people as they line up. We'll identify you. Would you like to go first?
I think I would.
Please state your name and address, please.
Right, thank you. My name is Roy Magnuson. I live at 118 School Street. I have just a couple of items. The trees, the pine trees in the 20-foot buffer zone, to me it looks like they're going to have maybe a challenge to get their roots down because they're only going to be in about 5 feet of soil because of the extension of the parking garage that goes out into that buffer zone area. And I was just wondering if the planning board would require the developer to maintain those trees in the event that they die, that they can't make it there. And also in the event since they're pines, when we get heavy wet snow, oftentimes it breaks the branches out of pine trees. So 5 years down the road, those pine trees may not look as good as they did when they first went in. So I'm just curious if we would require, them to be maintained. I'll go ahead with my other question.
Sure.
There's 2 dumpsters now behind the existing building, one for the Wild Blossom and one for the pizza shop. I didn't measure them, they're maybe 125, 150 square feet each. I don't see those replicated anywhere. And I would think that the new building would also require a few dumpsters anyway with 12 apartments and whatever commercial winds up in there. And to me, I don't know if I don't see enough space allotted to dumpsters for all of this. So, just a question for the developer.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to respond?
So regarding the trees, yes, we definitely will maintain them. And the snow does, like any homeowner, snow breaks them, we're gonna fix them.
Make a note that we just currently require landscape to be replaced on the existing property to the original specs when the tree's done.
Absolutely. And in regards to the dumpsters, correct, there is another dumpster behind the Wild Blossom. So both of those dumpsters are, one is a 5-yarder. There's only one 5-yard dumpster on the site, where Islington Pizza has they're not dumpsters, they're barrels. So and they're dumped once a week. What we're proposing is one dumpster location, dumped twice a week or 3 times a week to consolidate all the waste.
So a lot, just how big of a dumpster are you talking?
A 5-yard dumpster.
Oh, another 5-yard?
Yeah.
Helen Gordon, I just want to say, I am on the Islington Task Force, but I'm speaking tonight as a resident, 44 Brookfield Road. The architect mentioned information on the materials that you're proposing for the building. I kind of saw that you had something here this evening. Could you share that with us?
Sure.
And give us some details on where it's going to go?
I forgot. It's not a very exciting board because it's small pieces, but it relates to the elevation, so just 1 second. I think this, the rendering will show it. So the siding material would be a cement board siding. We have 2 colors. One would be a white and the other would be a blue. We're not 100% convinced this is the right color. We're still trying to find the right color, and if we have to paint, we will.
That looks like a clapboard.
It is a clapboard. It would be a clapboard, 5 inches exposure, an asphalt shingle. We're looking to do a dark charcoal asphalt shingle, and that's indicated on the top portion and any of the overhangs and eaves. A big portion of a big detail in this project in both the new building and the existing is the trim, and it's all going to be AZAC, so a maintenance-free material that would be rail and style. So it's all that white along the bottom, and the panels and the heavy detailing and the rakes is all AZAC. So there's quite a bit of that. We have brick along the base of the existing of the new building, and you can see little pieces of it here. So this would be a real brick. This is just shown as a veneer, just a sample piece. But those are the major components. It's fairly simple. We would have a dark clad window, double hung windows on the new building, and the lower level would be an aluminum storefront. Again, that would be with a darker, not an aluminum wood. We would have a bronze finish. But that's not super exciting board because there's not a lot of materials. And it's very consistent all the way around. And the next pass we will take, we will show the Islington Pizza building in terms of all 4 elevations and a roof plan. So we will provide that for the next level.
Would you mind if that was circulated
Sure.
around? Just so they can get close to what I'm passing on the next comments. Thank you.
Bill DeLay, 148 School Street. I have 2 questions. What are the specs or the legal size of a parking space in Westwood? Can somebody answer that? Length and width?
What do we use?
The length and width varies by the angle. If it's a 90-degree angle parking, straight parking, then it's 18 6" by 9 6".
Okay.
But the spaces change in size if the parking is angled. So a 45-degree angle parking space is a much shorter space.
Shorter, how much shorter?
In its length from the drive aisle to the edge. I don't have the parking
Yeah, I don't have the
dimensions in front
exact
of me.
number.
Okay, because that would make it a little bit easier if we, to decide if they have enough parking, basically. And my other question is, how long does this project take from start to finish? How long will we be seeing construction once it begins? I know we're not that far along, but we must have an idea.
I would say 12 to 16 months.
12 to 16 months. And is there a requirement once they start, that they finish within a certain amount of time, or once they break ground? Let's say they don't finish in 18 months, let's say they let it go 3 or 4 years. I know you don't want that, I'm just.
Project has to be started within 2 years of issuance of the special permit. That's for the
Okay.
commencement of the work. It does not have to be completed within that time. Building permits do have a period of time that are associated with building permits, so
Okay.
they cannot allow the building permit to lapse.
Okay, very good, thanks.
My name is Jim Dwyer. I live on 91 School Street, just a couple blocks away. I have questions primarily regarding the parking. Do I understand correctly that the way you're calculating it, there are not enough parking spaces for the commercial and residential within this building? And that you're counting on 7 spaces where Wild Blossom is?
They're 18 short.
No, I think, depending on.
18 short total, 9 short if you don't count wild,
I think we were at 7.
7
Seven.
based on the ID.
Yeah, depending
Yeah.
on who you use.
Yeah, depending on how, what that residential component is. I think a reasonable expectation would be 7 short.
Yeah, 87 to 80, I think is the math that we're going off of.
But there was also 2 minus because of the, behind Islington Pizza, because of the loss from the ends that you mentioned.
And then dumpsters will also need to be put in.
And as being in that cul-de-sac that School Street is, I use the parking lot, both the municipal parking lot and the spaces next to Wild Blossom and in front of Islington Pizza, and that's pretty well full already. I mean, I don't think it's a prudent thing to say to Wild Blossom, by the way, we may be using all your spaces for that residential building that's going up. I mean, I don't know, is anyone from Wild Blossom here? No? Maybe they don't care. If I were the owner of Wild Blossom, I'd say, hey, I bought this space, I'm leasing the space based upon the expectation that I would have parking spots for my customers. But now you're saying, hey, guess what? We're gonna use those spaces for the residents down the thing here. And so I'm not really in favor of using the municipal parking spots because I see those are full most of the time. I'm having a tough time finding a parking space there now. If there was overflow needed, and I haven't heard anyone mention this, there's a wonderful space where the Taylor used to be, which is, if I understand it, it's owned by you gentlemen?
Yes.
Oh. So why not use those? All right. Another thought is, last time we were here, we were talking about the garage door coming down for security, which is good. Like that. And tonight someone said the residents are gonna have a clicker to get in, but it's also gonna be a commercial space. So how will people who are visiting the commercial spaces use that if they don't have a clicker?
It would be only for the employees of the commercial space, not.
Oh, so it wouldn't be for the,
Not the customers.
so they, again, that would be added pressure on.
Well, with, back to your comment about the residents, there are, I forget what the number is, 20-some spots located in this garage or this basement. There are 12 units. So I think the presumption is the residents will be there, not parking elsewhere, Wild Blossom or the municipal lot or any place like that. I think the presumption is they're gonna park in the basement of their building.
Right, if they can find the spots. And this has nothing to do with the town, but if I were a resident there, are there gonna be cameras down there to?
Yes.
No, that's good to hear. And with the tables that are gonna be in front of Wild Blossom, is that right? So is the railing gonna be pushed out by the street then, so that you can put in tables in there?
The railings will be on our property. They won't be on the street.
I mean, how could you put tables in there? Are you suggesting that there would be tables then, what is now a sidewalk,
Are you
right?
asking, are they gonna rebuild this to
Right.
allow for tables and new railing?
Right.
Is that what's gonna happen? Right. That's what's gonna happen.
What?
What's there now will be gone, and they'll rebuild it to allow for new railing and table areas.
So the railing will be,
A new one will be
Closer
put
to
in.
the street.
And
yeah, it'll
closer
be
to the
close to
street.
the street, along the
It's
perimeter
still-
of the street, so you can get some tables.
But
in
still
there.
on their property.
It's the sidewalk outside of that.
Right,
Sidewalk
I guess it
inside
would be
and
a-
outside.
There's two sidewalks, an elevated one as there is
Right.
now, and a
Right.
lower one as there is now.
Right.
But they'll change in dimension.
Yeah, right.
Still
Why
illegal.
That's good to hear.
Why do we need two sets of the sidewalks?
Well, there's one at street level and one at the level of the doors to get in the building.
Yeah.
To get into Wild Blossom and the post office. Those are all higher up. The doors are high. So.
So that's like a handicap accessible, sort of, so you can put a ramp in?
Yeah, there
is
would
that-
be, there would be ramp on either side, right?
No, I'm just more thinking in terms of green space, like if you didn't need two sets. But,
Yeah, yeah.
But I
If we could
understand.
Pull off to Mr. Dwyer, finishes his.
Well, and that was really it. I was just primarily concerned about the parking. I guess I still am. As to whether we're gonna have, too much demand for too few spaces. And,
You say you've seen the municipal lot full all the time?
well, not all the time.
I've never seen a whole lot of parking.
Oh, really?
During the week.
Yeah, I mean,
The commuters parking in there?
No,
Who
Walk to
knows?
the train?
no.
well, I don't know about people walking through, but I mean, certainly employees at CVS or the library and the daycare center and Islington barber shop, people upstairs, and we've gotten a good deal out of that. A lot of people are using it now. Yeah?
Well, it was built.
It's just that, it's good success, gone more than we thought, and it's kind of reached its, close to its limit. So, we certainly want to do prudent things to make sure that it doesn't go over the limit and people start saying, I can't get into Islington Pizza anymore, and getting to the post office is a hassle, and all that, just, so, I don't know, that's really it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christina Martin, 23 Brookfield Road. So I have a couple concerns, I'm sorry. The first, I wonder if we can't address, there's a lot of concerns around parking. If we can't try to address that by enhancing the walking and biking experience. So instead of having this like frozen mindset that we have to have this number of spots, can we just try and make this area as pedestrian and bicycle and commuter friendly as possible so that we have more people coming through on foot traffic than coming and needing to park their car. And then along with that, I have a concern that the businesses that we might want to attract here to create the village feel might not be in line with the low parking volume. So the residents, we might want a restaurant, that might not really fit in. Maybe office space would, but that doesn't really give you that village feel. Could we try to recruit, and I don't know how this works, if you recruit or just pursue, or if just whoever applies is who you talk to, but businesses that would be conducive. So a bike shop or a bakery, places where people aren't going to need to park their car for 3 hours to have a meal, but are also not just sort of office space. Then, and this kind of ties into the question I was asking about the two sidewalks, I have some concern about the lack of pedestrian barrier, only in that it's too, and this is probably based on where the property lines are, but it's too bad that the landscaping cannot be moved to the patch in between the road and where you're gonna have people walking, potentially sitting out at tables and whatever. I don't know if there's a way to address that, but that's kind of like an urban landscaping concept, is just that pedestrian safety, whether it's, you know, a lot of cities do their parallel parking along there, it creates a physical barrier that keeps pedestrians and foot traffic safe. It doesn't really look like we've done anything to enhance the safety of our pedestrians, so that's a concern I have. I still don't quite understand the traffic flow, and the concern I was asking prematurely was, even though I don't think you legally can turn left into these parking areas, like from this angle we're looking at, but people do. So, are we gonna have
There's
a,
no prohibition now
There's
for
not?
left-hand
You
turn
can
into any
even-
driveway.
isn't it a double yellow?
You can cross a double
can't
yellow to
pass.
enter a driveway.
Oh, okay, see, I didn't know. Still, you know how busy traffic gets on that corner at rush hour? You can imagine somebody waiting to try and make the left into the parking garage. I can imagine that becoming problematic. So, I
They
don't,
waited at the light to turn left on the school.
what's that?
They waited at the light a few blocks
So
away.
if you're entering in this parking garage, can you only turn right into it, like from?
No, you can turn left. What I'm saying is there's another place cars stop at the light to wait to turn left. It's kind of the same condition.
And they turn left.
There was
which
an
is
arrow that
Islington
helps you,
Pizza.
but you're supposed to be there after the arrow's off.
It's more the configuration of turning left on Islington that you do right now. So if you're coming from
Right.
side where
the
Roach
exact same.
Brothers is and you're turning left.
But would it
Now
not
there's
potentially be
another
more
road.
if it's, I'm just thinking like rush hour traffic, that's when it's really problematic. You have people coming home from work now. I mean, I think that's gonna become a heavier time of traffic there. I don't know, I just know that in past meetings, we've said that this area basically fails with traffic. And, I think we should definitely be sure we don't do anything to make it worse, but it might be an opportunity. I don't know if there is anything else that can be done, but to try and make it better would be great. It would encourage people, because you're also gonna have people not wanting to come to the retailers renting from you if the traffic is so horrendous that it's nothing but a headache. They're gonna go somewhere else. So, I mean, I feel like we all have to work together, try and really come up with a solution. Because you wanna be successful and we wanna love our neighborhood and it needs to work.
Did you want to get Greg's thoughts on the left-hand turn? You did the review of the traffic analysis. Did you see
Into the
concerns
garage.
about those movements?
I think as Bruce mentioned, it's not dissimilar from the left at the signal today. Also, the signal will meter traffic where there should be gaps where vehicles can turn left.
Is there anything exponential there when you have like a left turn upon a left turn?
Not other than the potential, because they're close, the potential for the left from the light to queue back past these driveways. That would be the only exponential
And then
characteristic.
if there starts to be a backup of people trying to queue to get into the apartments, then we potentially could see people trying to cut out around and back in, right, to make the left at the light?
With 12 units, I wouldn't
You don't think
expect that
there'll
there'd
be
be
Okay.
a line of vehicles. There might be one waiting to turn in when one's coming out at certain instances, but
And then is the left turn into Islington still gonna be there? Or you,
yes.
so there'll be a left for the apartments, the left for Islington, and then the left at the light.
Right, we currently have two of those
Right.
lefts now, we're adding the third with the
Right.
garage.
We actually have three.
Is the
We
driveway
have,
true.
there's an
We are-
existing commercial business there that has a driveway in
The law
that
office.
location. So
But it doesn't have,
it doesn't have significant traffic, no,
no.
but neither will the
Yeah,
apartments.
we also have an apartment currently in the Hart Tavern above
Okay.
that somebody's using for access.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Actually, I have one, just, guys, I asked you a quick follow-up question, so you're saying you don't feel like they're enhancing the pedestrian experience?
I think it's enhanced,
Okay.
I just think there's so much potential. And especially if you're buying additional properties, I mean, I could see Islington Center, parking is an issue now, but down the street, there's properties that have been vacant for a while. If you could buy those, make them a parking space, you know, and make this an area that people come, you know, people get off the train, they walk here, they get dinner, they go to a restaurant, they pick up a gift. You know, their family parks in that parking lot down the way, which if we end up having to move the train station, would end up being a good investment anyway, because people are gonna need to park there. I mean, either way, if we could make that whole section of Washington Street a walkable place where you go with your family and you get ice cream, and there's a lot of potential, but it's all gonna be driven off of the decisions that are made here, whether those things build easily upon it or whether it's just a missed opportunity, which I think unfortunately Westwood has missed a number of opportunities in the past, sometimes because we do this and we take too long to get things through, and sometimes also because we're afraid of change. So I just think there's a ton of potential in this area, and I would hate to miss it.
Well, the development in the area is being addressed. We have a task force with a number of town staff as well as residents to address the development of all of Islington. But right now, what we have to concern ourselves with is the project at hand.
Right, and I'm saying,
And it's our job to make sure that whatever is built does work in concert with what is there now. And in the future developments have to work with what we are building now. So we're building something that we think is hopefully a good jumping off point to redevelop Islington. And I hear what you're saying about the sidewalks. Other than possibly relocating them off of the street, there's.
which would be huge. I mean, that's a major.
But then that affects Islington Pizza Building. How do you get up to the level of, without having that sidewalk up there currently? So you only have so much space to work with.
Right.
And the people need to be able to get up there. And the design that they're going with.
And I'm not an architect, I'm just telling you, this is one piece of design information I have, and I hope it will be considered.
If this was a whole empty 20 acres, then you can design a perfect plan, but we can only do it one project at a time as it
Right.
comes before.
There's a lot of space though, from building to the road. So I'm just saying, we're doing this once, I'm guessing, I don't think you wanna go through this probably ever again.
You're talking about the new building?
The whole, this whole section, the new building and the
new building hasn't
Islington
been built
building.
yet, but where it is where it has to be. And so, with the
Right,
setbacks
so
that
then
are
perhaps I'm
required.
talking more about the existing building, and that's
The existing building has its own set of parameters that it has to go by.
I understand that, I'm just saying, I think we can do better, that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Well, I mean, there are only two things we can do to make this area more pedestrian friendly. One would be to eliminate the 3 parking spaces in front of the building. I'm not sure, maybe.
No, because that
Maybe that
is
should
a
be up for
barrier, that's a
discussion.
protected
See if you
point
have
for
not.
urban planning.
So maybe that could be discussed. The other thing would be to eliminate traffic lanes on Washington Street. We have 4 of them. And I don't think that will work at all, because that will kill the traffic. So it's very limited what we can do, but maybe we should discuss then those 3 parking spaces.
That's a misunderstanding though of what I'm saying. So, to make it pedestrian friendly doesn't mean that pedestrians rule it. It means you put certain design pieces in that make it safer and more comfortable.
And that's what they're doing here. They're doing that here.
I think they're doing a great job, don't get me wrong, I'm very happy with the changes. I'm just saying, I think there's a little bit more room for something fabulous. We could have good or fabulous.
Kayla Kilstein, 31 Beacon Street. I am a member of Task Force, Islington Task Force, but I'm not going to speak in regards of that. I represent Bike and Pedestrian Safety Committee. Right now I am on my own. By trade, I'm an architect. So far, I like very much all the changes that the team of this developer, local developer, not a merchant developer, has done to us. So I feel great so far with the changes, especially with outdoor seating. At the same time, I would like to see personally the materials between the existing building at 301, 315, to kind of be together at the same kind of level and quality as the new proposed building. Let's say this building has very
I think it is.
it is, correct,
yes.
perfect.
Being redone.
Which is great. So as I check the 301, right now it's pretty much this white paint is pretty much taken off or peeled off so far. So it will be great, pretty much just a refreshing of that. At the same time, when the structure is, the exposed structure that is shown, or it's an imitation of some pop-up brick, a rectangle shaped brick, it will be great if we can reinforce it with a different color. So that kind of
I think,
preparation, it's good to have that kind of. It will be interesting to kind of pop up the existing facade, which is very appealing.
Yeah, it's gonna be all redone.
Correct, okay.
So, I don't know, the brick won't even be visible, right?
No.
No, so you won't even see that brick.
Anymore, so it's gonna
It'll
be
have
just
a new
shingles.
facade.
Yeah, just
Oh,
shingles.
well, we're trying, we have a picture, we're trying to get it up
Okay.
for you.
Clarify. At the same time, I would emphasize also the importance of the exterior lighting. Not just necessarily on the exterior facade, but also on the outdoor seating. Whenever people are sitting, it will be great if you see some small LED lights, 2-inch to 2.5-inch LED lights, to kind of bring the atmosphere of outdoor seating even in the late hours in summertime.
So, two of the comments. So if you go, the lighting, sorry. So in regards to the lighting, if you look at the picture above, second one over in the trash, we have lighting on the railings where the seating is.
Great.
So there's accent lighting there. There's also
For the
lighting,
facade.
no, that's for the seating area.
Obviously, correct.
So there's also accent lighting underneath the stairs as you're coming up in front of, between the post office and Wild Blossom, and in front of Islington Pizza. Underneath the tread, there's a little light when you're walking up the steps.
Okay.
Mike, if you go back to the facade of the other building, the post office park. So you will not see any of the brick that's there today. That'll be completely redone. All new siding and all new details.
Okay, thank you. At the same time, the signage for each of these stores, let's say the Wild Blossom does have pretty much brand new signage. Will it be, I don't know, too much to ask that, to kind of refreshen the signage for kind of storefront improvements?
So in regards to signage, yes, we will we're gonna improve all the signage in front of the post office block. And we haven't put a package together yet for the building next door because we don't have tenants. I think we have to come back for a sign package, correct?
Yeah.
Once we have that.
We'd like to see
it'll-
some signage presentation.
But generic.
Doesn't
Yes.
have to have a specific tenant,
Okay.
generic is fine.
I mean, for daytime and nighttime too. I mean, are the signage gonna be pretty much?
Indirectly lit.
Correct,
Yes.
indirectly lit. Okay, perfect. And also, in order to kind of bring the atmosphere of pedestrian friendly, it will be great that probably the anchor corner might be a perfect spot for putting something, a very small scale sculpture. Not necessary to push the developer on the side to finance it. That can also come from, I don't know, from the town. Pretty much just such a small bronze pedestrian, like a pedestal that shows the history of Islington Center, or it can show something different that can attract the pedestrians to kind of get that focal point. It can be, I don't know, something kids related, something interesting to kind of emphasize the Islington Center as a whole. And the use of materials, especially for this project, which is the first project among all the other county projects by the same developer, it will be great to have this kind of the use of materials, good quality, a great combination of all, such as wood, stone, brick all together, and to kind of all together, especially on the sides, to kind of have that wayfinding. So it's easy for people to navigate through the whole center itself. One more question is about the fire lane. Does the fire truck goes up to the middle? It's just a vertical line that is 90 degrees to the Washington Street, a fire lane, and it does not end up as a fire lane up to the end?
Yeah, it can go up.
It can go up to the end?
Yes, goes right up.
Okay, that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good.
Just one more comment.
Sure.
So, I met with Dave Atkins in regarding some of the landscape in front of the post office block, and one of the details that Dave mentioned is where in front of Wild Blossom there was currently some benches. We kind of put like a half moon in with, again, benches facing out, and we're gonna either put some kind of a pot or a suggestion that you have, I think it's a great idea, put some kind of
Yes.
statue or
Definitely,
something
structure
that,
can make it even much more,
and we're open to suggestions for that.
360-degree, much better use of it. My suggestion.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the presentation. My name is Brian Gorman, 145 School Street. I just took some notes during the meeting today. I did not review prior to the meeting. So essentially, the fundamental issue here is that we want the residential and retail to thrive. And doing so, parking is a huge formula in that. We don't want businesses that go in and struggle. I've gone into businesses in Westwood, I'm not going to name them, since this is being put on the public forum, but they struggle, and it's because of parking, and that's a fact. Based on our current formula, you need 96 spots. This ITE software program, I'm sure has inherent problems with it, especially with the double parking underneath. At the last meeting, we talked about each parking spot being designated. I believe that that's what we talked about, whereas tonight it sounded like there was going to be a mixing. I heard the weekends would be different than during the weekends and weekdays. Did you state that?
That wasn't mine, I made it,
Okay.
yeah.
So will they be designated?
How does it typically, how have you done this in the past? Are they designated for the residents?
They're designated for residents and for the employees of the commercial.
Just the under.
Right.
When I say designated, I mean numbered.
Right, so tenant in number 1 gets space 12.
No, we don't know those spaces.
So, but do you spread it out so that tenants, the residents are on one side and commercials on the other, or is it just you get down there and you find your open spot?
Correct, it's first come, first, okay.
And then in that ITE formula, when you put in this underground parking, did it take into consideration the residential versus retail and the mixed use within those?
No,
Or
it's
is it
just
just
a total, the ITE formula, same as the Westwood zoning regulations, is just total based on the uses, so.
Yeah, so that's
the red-
completely flawed because it doesn't take into consideration the double parking. So we can't go by this ITE number 87.
How do you mean it doesn't take in the double parking?
No one's gonna wanna get blocked in.
If I understood so is the IT number, does it take into consideration the fact that some parking spots are gonna be only used to designated for one unit? So,
Our
in other words, if you're
expectation-
unit 12, you can use one of those double. Did that go into the IT formula?
No, our expectation is that there's 23 spaces underground. 15, based on the IT formula, 15 would be required for the apartments. The remaining 8 would be used by commercial employees.
Yeah.
And so they may use those tandem spaces.
So-
A resident that has 2 vehicles may use a tandem space, that's up to the applicants.
Thank you for the clarification. So that IT number, we can't go by that number. We can't. It doesn't go into the program, it doesn't, so that's just one of my points. And even given so, they're still 9 short. So there we go on that. The other question I have has to do with the application. are all the documents that we're looking at in the application? Because I want to make sure that it's designed exactly to the spec, to what it is rendered in these.
Every submittal is part of the application.
But is every, this PowerPoint presentation, are all those in the application?
They're in, I mean, it's in a supplemental file, not in the original, but as we file, every document that you're seeing tonight has been filed with the
Great,
board.
that's great. No, because I know some towns that got into problems with that, where they presented something, but it wasn't in the
Every
application.
presentation, everything submitted electronically or in paper is part of the application.
That's good, that's great to know. Then the other issue is the Saturday parking. That's where you have the residents coming in with the retail. We already went over that before, but it wasn't stated tonight, so I wanted to restate that. The other issue, which was brought up before, is that just because the residents will have the designation underneath doesn't mean that they can't park outside of that. It may be more convenient for them to park next to Islington Pizza and go up into their apartment than going into the underground. So that sort of takes away from parking. So I don't want to lose track of that. And then the loading, that does seem to be a problem. I'm not sure there's enough room for two cars. I certainly have a tough time doing that now, and we don't have those extra parking. I'd also like to see the landscaping retained to try to keep the aesthetics of the town. If we lose that landscape buffer behind Islington, meaning the existing shrubbery, and it just becomes a stockade fence or a chain link fence worse, I think that'd be negative. The furniture in the rendering, is that the furniture that you plan on purchasing for the building, or is that just an example?
It's an example.
Okay. It'd be nice to see the exact, what it is you're gonna purchase and put that in the submittal as well, because they do look kind of cheap. And then you talked about the pitch turn underneath. And then as far as, I wanted to go back on that, if you're coming in from Norwood, taking a left into that parking garage, I don't think that, for one, the only way you can take that left is if you're queued up with a red light, the light turns green, and then you jump across the parking lot. That's the only way that you can get into Islington Pizza. And I do that. But I'm the only car that can get through that way. So you can't assume that with that one way, there's not going to be an issue with cars going in. And then did fire and police, did they see that plan of the one-way crossing over the double lane?
They did.
Okay. But they may have seen it, but did we ask them the question, can you turn left down there? I don't think that was asked of fire and police, and I'd like that question.
The question that was asked was whether they found it to be a safe arrangement, safe driving with the markers.
But the question wasn't taking a left from Norwood. We didn't ask that question.
It was taking a left from Norwood, it was taking a right from Dedham, it was going through and coming out onto School Street.
Taking a left onto School or taking a left into the
Both.
parking lot? Okay.
The full,
I didn't hear them say that during the, when they were here at the answer.
they didn't say it here. They reviewed this and provided their staff comments.
Okay. I think it's worth asking them again. And then the last point, obviously, we also don't want to lose track of the historical building. Like, where is that going to go? Is that just going to get put in? Like, I just don't want to lose track of that. Like, it's going to be moved.
Where do we stand?
I think we should care about where it goes.
It's in process, so that's something that's part of the application. It's being worked on.
Okay. It wasn't brought up tonight.
It was not.
And that's what I'd like to say. But parking is an issue. We want these retail and residential properties to thrive, and we care about that. And just one more reminder, this is an 18-wheeler going down into School Street. So those are the deliveries. We're not talking about small trucks. So that's going to have to take a left from Washington into Islington Pizza. Thank you.
I just want to point out, before we go any further, so people understand parking requirements, with a FMUOD special permit, there are no parking requirements. There are no standards. We have zoning bylaw requirements that apply for underlying zoning. We have ITE standards that the board looks to in almost every application it reviews. They are very valid standards. They take into consideration the use. They're cumulative. Both of those standards are options for the boards to consider, as are the representations of the property owner as to what they see in other sites. The board makes a determination of what parking is needed here. They do this all the time. They review applications and determine what is the appropriate number of parking spaces. So I just don't want anyone to be concerned when they hear one number says this and another number says that. None of those are requirements. It's all for the board to take in all the testimony, to review it, and to determine what is the appropriate number of parking spaces. In addition, any decision that's granted and any application that results in construction, if the parking is insufficient, there's a requirement to correct that problem. And whether that correction requires the purchase of other property or changes on the property or limitations on use, those are options to the board. So I just want everyone to understand that I've heard people say we're short 7 spaces or 9 spaces or 18 spaces. We're short no spaces at the moment. No determination has been made. So that's still an open question.
Short based on the bylaws.
But the bylaw says 0. That's what the bylaw says for FMUOD. There is 0 parking requirement. The only requirement is that the board be satisfied that the parking will be sufficient to meet the needs of the development. So what our zoning bylaw requires for a single-family house is not what it requires for an FMUOD. What it requires for a restaurant is not what it requires for an FMUOD. It's completely open for the board to consider. So they consider all the questions, and they hear from the applicant, and they hear from the peer review, but there's not a standard, a single standard, or even the 2 standards to be applied. They take it all into consideration.
Thanks for the clarification. Lindsay Mahoney, 198 Mill Street. I appreciate Nora's clarification. Apparently, we're not short parking spaces, but based on industry standards, we still are coming up short. I'd like to make some observations that I saw in the site plan. It appears that the sidewalk in front of Islington Pizza is going to be dumped out into another parking space. If that's the case, I would imagine that that parking space would also be eliminated. I also don't see dumpsters within this parking complex, which we know that they'll be needed. Trash removal in a commercial building is a big feat. It takes lots of equipment, and lots of trucks will be coming in and out to properly dispose of it. Making sure that we're accounting for the parking spaces that need dumpsters and parking spaces that would basically be dangerous for somebody to walk into, I think should be considered by the planning board. Taking into account that we are industry standard, are short 9 spots, and the developer is talking about overflow to the potential municipal lot, I'd be curious to know if the town will be receiving some sort of donation for use of the municipal lot, or if there'll be additional taxes that are paid for use of the municipal lot. And also, if the town was ever to decide to not use that parcel as parking, how would that potentially affect this project in the long run?
So I can answer the questions about the municipal lot, and maybe we can rely on the developer to answer the questions about the sidewalk. I will point out there's no sidewalk there now, so this is a new sidewalk that's being proposed on the side of Islington Pizza. Right now, the door opens up into parking spaces. It actually does not work if you park in the parking space next to it. You can't open the door, so it's a problem now. This betters it. As far as the municipal lot, that land was purchased by the town roughly 15 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that, between 15 and 20 years ago, to provide parking for the Magaletta buildings. Those are the buildings that are now owned by Supreme Development. That was the intention in the town purchasing the property, and there was a zoning bylaw section that was written specifically to allow the use of that municipal parking lot by all the properties within 400 feet, which were the Magaletta properties. So it was purchased for that purpose, it's been used for that purpose, and our zoning bylaw is written to allow that continued use.
At the time that the parking lot was originally allowed to be used for those structures, were they commercial buildings?
Yes,
and were there residential, were there also residential units?
Above.
above?
In some of the buildings there were.
And same number, or so we're not
Not
adding
the same
excess
number.
cars to this?
There
number?
were, this would add more residential and would have less commercial. So the Islington has changed over time, but the intent was there was on-street parking before this parking lot was purchased. That was a gas station. There was on-street parking. When the street was redone and those on-street parking spaces were removed, the municipal lot was put in place specifically to provide parking to these buildings.
I think it would be interesting to do a study. I know I've heard some back and forth saying the lot is often empty, and then I've heard some of my neighbors say that the lot is oftentimes full, to determine who are using those parking spaces currently. Are they currently used by the properties that are within that 400 feet? And if they are being used that way and the lot is full, by adding more units and more commercial space, how will that affect the parking? Thank you.
Amanda Drainville, 57 Wentworth Street. Can we go back to a different slide? This, right here. Okay, so this is the underground parking, I believe. So I was roughly looking at the spaces, and I know it says it's 23, 24 spaces, but they don't look even to me. Like the one in the far left corner looks pretty narrow. I don't see how a regular sized car can fit into there, and especially if they're making the turns. So I just want to take that into account. And I also know that you guys said that you're going to split between residential and commercial, but I remember going to an earlier meeting and it was stated that most people take the train if they're going to be in an apartment. So those spots are all going to be full with the residents' cars, and it's going to be used for commercial. So I'm trying to understand the configuration, and nobody's going to want to get blocked in, so that's going to have to be designated for one apartment, is the ones above and below. In tandem, I guess, is the correct term. So then I'm also going to go to the traffic flow. So if there's a delivery made in between the apartment building and Islington Pizza, and it's a one-way, I don't see how there's going to be a tractor trailer parked there making deliveries and people that want to use those businesses to be able to maneuver around. So I just want the board to consider the flow of a tractor trailer parked there trying to empty the load and other cars trying to get around. So that's it.
Would the applicant mind just reiterating type of businesses you might anticipate using this? It could run a gamut. I'm not saying identify who they might be, but
You stole my question. That was my question.
no, and I think it's unfair to ask who are you going to rent to, but there are certain things we don't anticipate going in here.
Well, exactly, and I think it's important to know, as Nora, you mentioned too, that it depends how much parking is needed for different kind of businesses. So does the town have any say in what kind of types of businesses their properties will be?
For example, a restaurant needs a lot more parking.
Yes.
If you were to lease this to a restaurant, he'd have to accommodate with parking. If he can't accommodate for parking, he can't lease it to the restaurant.
Okay.
So that, it works, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
You think it's self-regulating?
Yeah, he can't lease it to a restaurant if he doesn't show the
Okay,
parking.
but this is only if you think about parking spots, but there are other things that we might think about when we think about, when considering who will be renting, what kind of businesses will be renting. I think that was Christina's point, for example, that she wants to, we want to see more people coming in, walking, I don't know, have like a village feel, and have there been any studies that that would show what kind of businesses will create this kind of feel that we are looking for? And if there is, like, can there be some kind of agreement that the property, that there is some kind of certain mix being kept? For example, I don't know, some businesses that attract pedestrian slow or some that are family friendly, or I really don't know what kind of arrangements those are, but have there been any study, and is there any kind of way to have this kind of agreement?
So two things. Something the task force is working on is a survey to be sent out to residents asking them what businesses they frequent now in Westwood, outside of Westwood, in Islington, outside of Islington, what businesses they would frequent if they were there, to give some idea to the developer about, you know, what the people want, what types of businesses, not only do you like the idea, but you'll actually use. So we're sending out the survey, so everybody watch the local newspaper, watch the website. It'll be coming soon. We'd like to get everyone's input on what that would be. As for restricting it, the FMUOD district has specific uses that are allowed and others that are not. That's the extent of restricting. So if there's a business use that's allowed in the FMUOD, it would be allowed in these businesses. But they would have to prove that they had sufficient parking to put that use in. So it could be a bank, it could be a restaurant, it could be a coffee shop, an ice cream place, a clothing retailer, a hair salon, you know, the general downtown commercial uses.
Okay, so what happens if all of a sudden, I don't know, it seems that it's more profitable just to have only offices and nobody's happy about it? Is there any kind of?
They are not prohibited from having offices in these spaces. They're designed to be storefronts, and you know, it's hoped that they will be storefronts, but there's nothing to prevent an architect from opening their shop, or a photographer, or a law office that's, as is there now. So that could happen. But that's how our zoning works. Our zoning allows commercial uses in commercial zones.
Okay, well,
but I think we make it clear that the residents would love to see very walkable, usable, family-friendly uses in the
I
area.
understand there is a mechanism that will allow us to express what we would like to have, but there is no mechanism to really
require that.
To require.
That's
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you.
Did we get your name and address?
Oh, I'm sorry,
did.
Pizza Libra. I live at 36 Beacon Street.
Thank you. So just to comment a little bit on tenants, this is I can't tell you who's going in, who's not going in, but I can tell you this, we're not gonna put in, if there's an Islington Pizza, we're not gonna put Joe Pizza to the left of him. There's gonna be variety. I don't know if it's gonna be a Starbucks, or I don't know if it's gonna be a dentist. I mean, today as of now, we're getting calls. We've had a call for a coffee shop, we've had a call for ice cream, we've had a call for a pediatrician. So it's very difficult to narrow down who exactly is going in there. To be honest, I wish we knew, because it's easy to design a building. In regards to the parking, we have the experience with other mixed-use buildings that we own, that the parking works well, especially for the mixed use, that the retail and the apartments above. Right now, with the retail vibrant during the day, open, and everybody going to work during the day, the parking space is always used. In my opinion, I think this is overkill from my experience, but for parking in that mixed-use building. But we understand there's standards and what the board needs, but that parking lot, I invite you can come to one of my buildings in Denham Square. We have 26 units, 10,000 square feet. We have 26 parking spaces in the basement.
You can't walk to the train. Yeah, that's a big concern. The bus line and the train.
That's a great point. We hope people will use the train. We hope half of them use the train. So if half of them use the train and they leave their car down below, there's still another 18 spaces for the commercial to use down below. So there's quite a bit of parking.
So I would like to know, how you expect the tandem spaces to ever be used unless they're assigned?
So we expect, in our leases, there's a couple different ways we can handle that. So if we have for the commercial lease, we can say, it's first, when you have employees, they gotta use the tandem spaces. We can structure it that way, or we can structure it where we have a unit that wants 2 parking spaces. Most of our units, actually, we can even structure it this way. In our Denham facilities, we restrict the parking to 1 unit for 1 space. We can have that option here as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just afraid if you don't assign the spaces, someone will come in and have to go park on the outer one.
Well, you have 12 spaces that are just single, so if we can run it, if we run them one per apartment, we can put it in their lease that they have to take the ones that are empty, don't take the tandems. But we don't want to assign spaces because we want the space to rotate. So during the day, when the businesses are working, we want those spaces to be filled by the employees. The key to the mixed use is that that space is always turning.
I think what Mr. Olenoff might be saying, if I understand, if someone who works in business A pulls all the way in, and someone who works in business B pulls in behind them, and the first person needs to leave, how can they leave with that
No,
person?
oh, okay,
Is
I'm
not
sorry.
holding behind them?
Yes, no, it's gotta be coordinated with the space. There's 2 spaces, I'm thinking, yes, if there's 2 spaces, you'd have to tell them, okay, the spaces 5, 6, and 7 are for your space, the
So
rest
the,
of
the person who works within that business can ask their coworker,
Exactly.
can I have your keys to move your car, or can you go move your car? Something like that.
And typically, how it works in a small village feel is that you're a neighbor. You know the doctor that's working next to you, you know the pizza guy that knows the guy next door, so you're gonna coordinate with each other.
Thank you. Thank you.
Paul Kelly, 107 Willard Circle. Just wanted to say a comment on the parking, since that seems to be a hot issue. In the wintertime, we're talking about parking spots. Are they gonna snow plow or are they gonna snow remove? So in the wintertime, you'll lose parking spots due to snow plowing. And then also in the back of the building where you have the 45 or 60 degree angle, are they gonna plow that up or again, remove it, so now your space is narrow for the travel lane in between those areas? Just wanted to point that out.
If you can speak to that, please.
I mean, if we get crazy amounts of snow, we have to obviously remove it out. We don't wanna block parking spaces, so, and we also have a snow storage area designed for behind the, I would say behind the new building, there's a snow storage area for that, for minimum amounts of snow, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches. But if, again, if it's 2 feet of snow, everybody has to remove it, not just me.
Thank you.
Can I make one last comment?
Sure.
I'd like to comment that I completely understand that we cannot anticipate what tenants are coming into the building, but a pediatrician would require far different parking requirements than a dermatologist would. And they would require different parking requirements than an ice cream shop would. So, for example, a dermatologist requires 3 times the amount of parking as a pediatrician. So, I would err on, due to shorter appointments and faster turnover in dermatology versus a physician doing an hour-long appointment. I would ask the board to err on the side of caution when it comes to the number of parking spaces you feel may be needed. Without knowing the tenants and the type of tenants, the requirement of parking could drastically change. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think had everyone an opportunity to speak. Does the board have any last follow-up questions or anything come to mind?
Yes,
So now we,
Steve wanted
Bye. Yeah, on the parking lot in front of the pizza place.
Would it be possible for you to align the hash mark area on the handicap parking spaces in front of the door so that it would facilitate access in and out?
Which one now?
on the side of the pizza
Yeah,
building.
on the side of the pizza
Side
building,
entrance.
you have a handicap space with the hash marks next to it, but it doesn't line up with the door, which would be a smart thing to do,
Yeah,
those to line up.
there's some grading issues there as far as the slope and making sure that space has to be flat, has to be less than 2%. And so, because you have to get up into the site and be able to build that sidewalk to match the door, that's why we put it there. It's there for a reason, it's not because we just decided to put it there, but it's a balance of doing what we were asked, which is to wrap that sidewalk around the building and then be able to build parking spaces which are handicap compliant and specifically less than 2%. And that's why we put it there. So when you go into the grading plan, I'd be happy to work with the consultants and see if we can improve that, and I'd invite them to give the feedback as to what we can do to solve that. But there were some design issues that we wrestled with in that.
Thank you.
But I'll work with the Beta people on that.
Nora, you had
Yes, so
something to add?
the board's next meeting is on March 15th, and then you have a meeting after that on April 12th. The next step here is for us to have a meeting between the peer review consultants and the development team and staff to finalize all the documents, to correct all the remaining concerns, and to bring back to this board a proposal that is complete. I don't think we have enough time to do that by March 15th. If you, both of you groups think that that's enough time, I would imagine Abby's out this week, she'll be back next week. We could probably schedule a meeting anytime after March 1st. If you feel that gives you enough time to come back by the 15th, the board can continue till the 15th. If you don't think that's enough time, then I think it should continue to the 12th or 8th.
I think we'd like to push it a little later. I know Mike just mentioned to me that he's going to be away for a period of time. We're dealing with some other vacations in our office too, so I think it will be better if we could postpone it to that next meeting.
But that said, so April 12th is the next meeting. That said, that would be the meeting when this would come back for a decision by the board. All of the remaining issues would have been addressed, the plans would be finalized. So if any board member has any concerns that have not yet been expressed, now is the time to hear them.
Nora, I think the parking is an issue, and it's not going to be an issue that we all come back and agree IT is right or not. I don't think they have a sufficient amount of parking on this project yet. So I'm not saying you're going to stuff it in here, but we've got